The Prime Minister has announced a $20 million investment in a women's and children's trauma recovery centre on the New South Wales Central Coast if Labor is re-elected. Advocates say domestic and family violence hasn't been addressed by the major parties during the first 4 weeks of the campaign, but Labor and the Coalition are now detailing their proposals.
This is a whole of society problem. Governments can take action, but it's a whole of society problem. We need men as well to have conversations with each other, to call it out when they see unacceptable behaviour, to address it and have those conversations. One of the things that we need to address is the issue of perpetrators. We need to deal with that.
Listening more intently to some of the services that we spoke to this morning, who I think feel the frustration, they're the ones with the lived experience and understanding the nuances. And look, where human conduct is a factor, it's difficult at many levels. You can have a summit, you can bring good people together. Ultimately, what we need to have is goodwill and a capacity to deliver change, and I think we must.
With more on how both parties are shaping up on the issue of domestic and family violence, here's Professor Kate Fitz-Gibbon from Monash University. Kate, welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
What do you make of what the parties are proposing so far?
Well, it's certainly great to see our political leaders speaking about the national crisis of violence against women and children now. As you mentioned, Ros, they were virtually silent on it for the first 4 weeks of the federal election campaign. It is good. There are some promising aspects of both announcements. So to look at the Albanese government, earlier last week they announced a package which included funding for innovative perpetrator interventions and also really focusing in on financial abuse and the different ways in which perpetrators use that both during a relationship, in relationship separation, and also after a victim may have died to access their superannuation. So they've put together quite a detailed package on how they will crack down and ultimately drive down the rates of financial abuse. A lot of that package isn't costed as yet, so we don't know what the full quantum of the Albanese government's commitment in this space is. If we look to the Coalition, they announced their package later last week, and it is a $90 million package plus the announcements this week. And they've really taken more of a scattergun approach in that there's a number of different areas that they've committed, 14 commitments, predominantly reactive, largely looking at law and order, the courts, improvements to different policing of different offences. So quite different approaches in terms of the dollars. One might at face value say the Coalition's putting more money on the table, but we also know that neither of the announcements so far are commensurate with the scale of the problem.
Okay, so what was missing then from the proposals, Kate? What did you want to hear but didn't?
I wanted to hear this the whole election. We are seeing in the last 10 days alone, 8 women have been killed allegedly by male violence. This is a national crisis. And over the last year, we saw domestic, family and sexual violence declared a national emergency by the Prime Minister. We saw the issue elevated to National Cabinet and all states and territories and the federal government at the table. But we're still not responding to it at the full scale that's needed across prevention, early intervention, response, and recovery and healing. We really need that full spectrum of systems, reforms, investment on the table if we're going to be able to effectively address this national crisis.
A lot has been said in recent weeks, Kate, about the need to effectively engage men and boys, both recognising those who are at risk of engaging in family and domestic violence, but also offering broad anti-misogyny education. Has this been effectively addressed by the political parties in your view?
Interestingly, given there's so much discussion, as you've said, on this topic, and particularly after I think more Australians than not have tuned in and watched the Netflix adolescence drama, both parties have been very silent in this space. And I think we have communities, we have leaders that are saying we want more work with men and boys. We're worried that our young boys are not doing okay, but also that we're not giving them the tools to promote healthier masculinities. So we really need to be listening to that. There are investments in the mental health and the men's health space, which will, of course, we hope engage men and boys through that. But I'd love to see more in the violence prevention space.
Okay, finally, what about funding then? Labor has promised this $20 million investment today. How much money in total is being put forward by both sides to combat this issue, and is it enough?
Look, it's fantastic to see that investment from Labor today, and noting, I think the coalition's announced they'll match that. In the national plan, one of the 4 focuses is on recovery, and we've had very little investment so far in that space. So a really important announcement. Overall, though, what we hear from the frontline services is that they need $1 billion annually just to meet demand. And that's at the crisis frontline. Yet, so far, across both of them, we're under 100 million from each party. So nowhere near the level of funding committed. And certainly, I would encourage everyone across the community to really ask which proposals are going to keep us safer, and also how can we nudge our politicians to deliver us an ambitious, transformative commitment to safety of women and children in this country.
Kate Fitz-Gibbon, Professor of Social Sciences at Monash University. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And if the story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Helpline on 1800 RESPECT, which is 1800 737 732.